have travelled all the way from Delhi to this beautiful place in Goa in Kerala. We are really thankful to you. I hope you are enjoying this year.
Yes.
Now, sir, first question that always comes in mind, NASSCOM is a very important body that everybody looks forward to. Government point of view, even for that matter, corporate's point of view, even for that matter, system integrators' point of view, or even the larger system, software developers, in India out here. NASSCOM actually had been becoming a very important guide force to most of the people. Okay. So you would like to understand, as a part of the first thing is, you had been involved into lots of e-governance initiatives since long. Say how e-governance has taken a pace from the day the NEGP guidelines has come into picture, and the day the MMPs have been defined, and the objectives that have been defined as on date. So what according to you is the status of those objectives that were set around 10 years before or 8 years before? So where are we today, sir? As per you.
Well, I think that if we look at the whole journey of e-governance objectively, in the last decade or so, since the whole NEGP first attempted to bring together the e-governance initiatives under a holistic, integrated plan or review, I think there have been a lot of, I would say, areas of success. There have been many projects which have actually redefined not only governance, but the way in which e-governance gets implemented. And in fact, these have actually shown the way as demonstrators of how government and the industry can actually work together to completely transform, if not the whole of governance, at least that part of the governance which citizens come into contact with. So from those early days till today, first and foremost, the importance of e-governance is no longer a question. The fact that e-governance has to focus on what is the perspective of the citizens and how do you enhance the experience of citizens when they interact with the government and how do you make it easy for them. These are no longer ideas which need to be sold to each department. So I think these have been now well absorbed. And the fact that you can really get a combination of quality and speed of implementation by structuring the right partnership with the private sector has also been well understood. There have also been undoubtedly many areas where there have been learnings and where there are shortcomings as well. And unless we draw the appropriate lessons from these shortcomings, perhaps we will not be able to go to the next stage as quickly as one would have liked it to be. What are some of these? For example, how do you achieve scale in terms of the whole spread of the implementation? How do you ensure that it covers multiple departments quickly? How do you ensure that each of these initiatives is that you are able to harness the entire power of the industry into this whole program? That is where there have been many challenges. The whole process of procurement in the e-government space has proved to be complex and cumbersome, and at many times a challenge from the point of view of managing the process, having the skills required to manage that process, and then combining it in the most appropriate manner with the change of processes and managing that change in the entire government as an organization. So these are some of the areas where I think there are still a huge room for improvement, and to my mind, while speed in individual projects we have learned how to crack that problem, at least in certain cases, and it has been demonstrated. But how do you get speed in terms of implementation of a large number of projects, and how do you get scale in doing that? That's the challenge.
So, correct me if my understanding is wrong. So what I understand is that, the major challenge is the transformation. Okay, there had been a traditional style of functioning to different tasks, and different people have been doing the different functions in different way over a period of time.
Right.
Now when you have loads of applications coming onto it, and you already have lots of ICT initiatives already taken by different departments, the adaptation to those changes is taking time. Is that correct? My understanding?
Yes, to some extent. What I mean to convey is that if you look at the way that technology is adopted by business and industry across the world, and that's what the Indian industry is helping them to do across the world in different countries. It is to take technology and optimize the processes with reference to that technology. So in a sense, looking at the process from a zero-based point of view as to what are the steps which are required or not required, what are the steps which can be eliminated, or what are the steps which can be combined. The level beyond that is also how you can actually transform the way the business is done. And that is an even deeper change, which sometimes requires integration across functions. It requires a relook at what are the functions you are performing and whether at all you need to perform them. Optimizing what you are doing is one thing, but looking at whether you need to do that at all or there are alternative ways of achieving the same objective is a radical step ahead. So this is what businesses are doing worldwide, and this is how they are not just becoming efficient and profitable, which may not be the government's objective, but this is how those businesses are able to relate to the customer better, and who are able to actually provide their services in the most convenient and the most cost-effective manner. And all of this does require quite a bit of collaboration within the organization and outside the organization. And this is built on a technology foundation. And to do that in the government, which itself is broken into so many different silos of departments and levels and layers and so on, these principles do become important. But there are added complexities because government does not work on a single bottom line. Many of these levels and layers have their own independent decision-making power, and how you are able to translate an integrated and a holistic view of the government in technologically enabled environment itself is a governance challenge, quite apart from the technology and process and organization issues. So these are, I think, some of the key aspects that have to be factored in.
So we have seen one decade, where lots of initiatives have come in, as rightly said by you now, at least we don't need to now sell the concept of e-governance to the states or the center as a whole, or to the government people that, this is what the e-governance means and all that. Now, the new government that is coming in the center, today, there is a big ambitious plan, with respect to digital India. Okay, and there are lots of talks and buzzwords, and there are lots of understandings, different things are coming out with the different people about their perceptions, with respect to digital India. So we'd like to understand your views, and we would like our people to also understand what actually is digital India.
I think first of all, digital India, if you take a cue from what the government has been saying, and I think I strongly believe in the core of that mission. In a digital India, every Indian would be connected and would be having access to all the opportunities, not just information but opportunities, economic as well as other kinds of opportunity, which the digital world offers. That requires connectivity, that requires a piece of technology in the hand, that requires the skills, the minimal set of skills required to be able to use that technology. So all of these are the part and parcel of the whole idea of digital India. The second thing is that digital India is not just digital government. In fact, digital government will be a small part of digital India. A large part of digital India actually lies outside the government. So, in a sense, the role of the government is twofold. One, as a consumer of technology and a user of technology to make governance better, to make it more friendly and accessible to the citizens, and one part. But the other part is, how does it enable the rest of the economy and the rest of the ecosystem to adapt to these new technologies and to actually facilitate economic growth and progress. So enabling and unlocking that potential is another very key function of the government. This may take the form of providing some enabling infrastructure like the broadband infrastructure. It may take the form of some laws and regulations like the laws on security or privacy, which build confidence. It may require regulatory interventions, for example, in the area of payments to enable people to use this medium from a mobile phone very conveniently. So there are many such things which are required when you try to move towards the vision of a digitally empowered Indian and looking at the mobile, which is now in everybody's hand, as the instrument of digital empowerment. So these are the two different roles that the government has to play. And the second role which I mentioned, which is about creating an enabling environment, is about the rest of digital India, which lies outside the government. 80% of this lies outside the government. The third part of the whole concept of digital India in my mind is to actually be able to lead to some very elevating visions in different areas. Just the idea of everybody being connected or having a device which can, for example, provide broadband access, and assuming that the person also had the level of literacy or the digital literacy to be able to use that device is one thing. But what does it mean, for example, in an area like, let's talk about agriculture, let's talk about education, let's talk about health, let's talk about skilling. What does it mean from that point of view? Can we envisage a situation where through the creative and innovative use of these technologies, you can actually bring down, you can halve the percentage of wastage in the agricultural sector in the next 5 years? Can you ensure that in the education, it's not just the number of people who are getting educated, but can you ensure that the skills that people acquire, that the students acquire, that the young children acquire, that the quality of that education and the quality of what they imbibe is far, far higher? The IT industry today is the largest employer in the country, in the organized sector. And one of the things that has been thrown up very clearly is a number of issues with regard to the quality of people being generated through our educational system. It's not just a problem of numbers, it's also a question of quality. And that's a huge issue. And fortunately, we are in a situation where we have the ability to actually generate the instruments needed, the content needed, the kind of programs needed to change that dramatically. So what is this then that is missing? What is missing is really a strategy to put these together in a creative way. The money is being spent. It's not that the money is not being spent. So in each of these areas, the people who are in that domain, people who are responsible for formulating government policy in those areas, be it education or healthcare or skilling, people in the industry who have the wherewithal to really generate those kind of inputs which are required to crack this problem, need to be brought together through a framework which will have to be a part of the vision and how it is going to be achieved. So it's part of the strategy that is required to accomplish the vision.
Well, sir, you touched a very important point. In fact, where every village, in fact, would be having a broadband connectivity, content would flow, data would flow, lots of things would get into it, and we are actually giving empowerment to the people to actually connect with each other in different ways, whatever ways. But sir, don't you think that this is actually we are opening our data to the cyber world as a whole, and how we ensure that the security of our data is is there. Well, what I mean to say is that the cyber security itself is a very, very important problem that also needs to be addressed to. If you can please throw a light onto that particular section, that will really help us. Because Digital India, we connect everything. There are lots of devices, routers, switches, and everything going on to it. And you have lots of say computer systems talking to each other in a different ways. People going to different social media sites. All those things happening. Contents flowing here, there, everywhere. And also, our systems, our government systems, our data, everything getting open to the world as a whole. How we ensure that our data is secure, and the security is also of prime importance. How can we ensure that?
Well, every invention, every technology which has brought great benefit to mankind has also come with a set of negatives. And the challenge always has been, as you adopt those technologies and reap the benefits of that technology, how you deal with the negatives. So first and foremost, I think we should be clear that there are certain things which will need to be safeguarded against, and security and privacy or invasion of privacy is one of them. For this, we have to actually have, as a part of the whole drive towards a digital India, a number of steps which deal with the legal and regulatory environment which governs this space. And if you look at security, for example, the questions with regard to what are the technology tools required, what are the procedures and practices required, are things which will actually have to be proliferated and which will have to be spread across the system, because security is as much a matter of practice as it is a matter of just technology. It's not just a question of installing a certain kind of security software and feeling that you are secure. Unless you follow certain practices, it will not be there. So making people more aware of some of these issues and creating the tools which are required for that purpose is one part of the second is, as far as, I would distinguish a little bit between the privacy and the security, because privacy is more of a social, it's a social concern, it's a social value. The concept of privacy in India may be different from the concept of privacy in Europe, or may be different from the concept of privacy in the US. But the security in terms of the technology and the practices are the methods used to translate that privacy into actual reality in the cyber world. So you do need to have proper rules and regulations with regard to privacy. For example, if you're talking about a digital India in the healthcare sector, and I, as a citizen, am in a position where I have my entire health record available digitally to me or to anybody else, and I don't have to worry about carrying all my records or history with me every time I go to a new doctor or to a new hospital. If you were to visualize that, how do you ensure, first of all, who owns that data? Is it me? Is it the hospital? Is it the doctor, or who? Most widely accepted views, it belongs to the patient. It is he who has to authorize, whether it's even if it's his own doctor. So, if you accept that principle, then since I own the data and other people have to get access to it, and technology is the tool, how are all these elements going to be controlled? And what are the rules and regulations in place to do that? So these are the kinds of new age regulations which will be needed, and which will require on one side, laws and regulations to determine privacy, and on the other side, laws and regulations to determine security, and how these concepts of privacy are translated into practice in the digital world.
Well, that's also, in fact, it's a very important aspect that you have touched upon. And in fact, we as citizens at large are responsible for our own data. I absolutely agree with that. Sir, I hope you had been a part of eINDIA and today, and how you felt at this event, sir?
I think that there is so much that is happening that it is almost impossible for anybody, even an organization like NASSCOM, which actually deals entirely with this space, to keep track of what is happening. It's difficult for people to even digest the enormity of the change which is happening. So an event like this actually enables some of the actors and players to come together, exchange their experiences and also see what is happening and go back with some fresh ideas to implement it in their particular domain, or to see the relevance of some of the solutions which have been outlined in this event. So I think that by itself is an extremely important function. I also believe that in Digital India, we will do it the Indian way, not as a grand plan orchestrated from somewhere, but as a collective resultant of multiple people doing multiple things, but based on a very broad overarching vision set out by the government. Pretty much the way, for example, it happened in the telecom sector over the last decade or so. It was not a government program which was laid out to provide a mobile phone in everybody's hand, but it was a series of government initiatives and changes in policy and regulation which made it happen, and made it happen at a pace which was unprecedented in the world, where India did it faster and bigger and better than any other country in the world, including China. We can do that in Digital India as well, because we have all the capabilities here, but we have to do it the Indian way.
So it's really encouraging that yes, we can, because the mission to Mars itself was a success story. It's a great case study in front of us, where we had been ahead to many nations across the world, and the nation has looked at us a very, very seriously on that aspect. And so we at eINDIA, in fact, as a part of this organization, we try to bring in those knowledge levels, and so that more and more interactions can come and all those stuff. So, sir, what are your suggestions, or we would like to have your feedback. We want to improve more. So how can we do it? What do you feel like after attending this event? What do you feel what are the areas of improvement?
I think it's wonderful that eINDIA and eLex has been following this journey consistently over the years, and is able to just observing it and bringing out the trends itself is a huge service. It's a part of the whole revolution. It's not merely observing it; it's actually facilitating it. And as we go forward, as I said, this revolution has to happen in every sector. And in each sector, there are many multiple forces which operate: the technology, the providers, the people who are responsible for that domain. So there are many different elements that are involved. And as we see examples of how they are coming together, and what are the different models by which they collaborate and enable such transformation, I think to continue to follow that journey at both the levels, one at the overarching level of Digital India and the other at the level of various key domains, and how this transformation is actually happening, what's good, what's not so good, what's right, what's not so right. I think that is a very important direction which it should go into, to derive those trends and opportunities. There are huge opportunities, for example, by the whole mobile revolution, by new technologies like cloud and social media. And we've seen some wonderful examples in today's and the last 2 days in the conference as well. And many of these also are possible without getting into a convoluted government procurement process.
Very true.
So how do you actually keep absorbing these opportunities and grabbing them and achieving the scale and speed that is required? So I think that's what eINDIA and eLex should be doing.
In fact, we'll take this as a feedback, and we will try to incorporate into our future events that we come across to. So thanks, sir. Thank you very much again. In fact, to be a part of this wonderful interaction, and it has always been a pleasure to talk with you. And whenever any of our member always whenever come to you, it's always been very, very encouraging words that we always hear from your side, and we continue to hear more from your side. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, sir.